Hello ladies and latents, and welcome to another countdown. Recently I played a game that brought an interesting pattern to light. A lot of my favorite characters in gaming happen to be female. I've wanted to do a favorite characters list for a while, but I figured it would be interesting to explore this scenario instead. You probably aren't asking this, but I'll pose this question and answer it regardless. What do I look for when deciding what characters go on this list? Personally, I judge my favorites based on personality, character arc, interactions with other characters, importance to the story as a whole, character design, and other traits that make them likable varying from character to character. There are only a few rules for this list, and they're pretty simple ones. Only one character for each represented franchise, only characters from games I've played, and most obviously they have to be female to be included. This does not mean only human women though. I'm taking any character that is female into consideration, so they can be animals, robots, or any other female being. With a list like this, I feel I need to slap a couple disclaimers on the intro. First off, I'm giving a spoiler warning because I will be discussing game plots in depth, so don't say I didn't warn you if you have something spoiled. Another thing that should be said for this list in particular. When ordering this list, I did not focus on the attractiveness or sexiness of the characters in question. This list is primarily on the basis of their character assets, not their other assets. Now, with all the introductory crap out of the way, let's get rolling. Pokemon X and Y introduced a bucket of new characters, some really awesome and some really lame. And at number 10, we find one of the characters on the really awesome side of the spectrum, Emma. After being introduced to Looker through a message on the Holocaster, you find Emma on one of your assignments to investigate suspicious alleyways where children are rallying. Throughout the Looker side quest, she gets a whole mess of character development considering how short the side quest is. Emma grew up on the streets of Lumio City, living with her pet Esper, with whom she has a strong bond with. They lived in the slums together for a majority of their lives, playing with other kids and street gangs. After being found by the player, Looker takes her in, and with this, she develops a father-daughter relationship with him. In her attempt to assist her pseudo-father, she begins working for a mysterious employer. This employer is later revealed to be Zerosic, one of the last active members of Team Flare. He uses her as a weapon, stealing Pokemon from the citizens of Lumios because,
You know, I don't really know. Got any ideas, Gladys?
For science.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
After thwarting Zerosic's plan for making a super suit, I guess, Looker is on his way out of Kalos and leaves his building to her. She dedicates herself to protecting the citizens of Lumio City using the expansion suit and her less than competent street gang. Despite her age, she also has a variety of skills, with a Z because letters. After all the battling you do with her both under mind control and otherwise, she's obviously a skilled battler. She's also bilingual, as shown through the discussion with that crazy tourist lady, and has the innate ability to befriend and lead people. Even with the very small amount of screen time she gets, she's become a beloved character by Pokemon fans, and I agree wholeheartedly. She's definitely a favorite of mine. At number 9, we have one of my personal favorite Mario characters, as well as one of the most mysterious ladies of gaming, Rosalina. As head of the Comet Observatory, Rosalina travels the galaxy with her family of Lumas, exploring and experiencing the wonders of space. When she was first introduced in Super Mario Galaxy, next to nothing was clear-cut about her. She was very mysterious, and for most of the game didn't say or do much. She kept calm, and it was clear her concern was more for the Lumas than Mario turning into a bumblebee. She was merely unfortunate enough to get caught up in Bowser's tomfoolery. Rosalina gets a lot of her backstory, specifically her childhood, explained in her storybook found in the library, and without a doubt this is the best part of her character. To sum it up shortly, a baby Luma crashes on her home planet and she leaves with it to explore space and search for its mother. On their adventure, they didn't find the Luma's mother, rather they found a comet to ride and call home and countless Lumas to take care of. It's crazy how much this storybook reveals not just about Rosalina, but about the lore of the Mario universe as far as the Galaxy games go, and with the simple, beautiful music in the background, the storybook is one of the most emotionally stirring things in the Mario series.
With her fantastic and emotional backstory and her cool, calm demeanor, Rosalina is the princess of the Mario universe I feel best deserves to take the cake.
Now, how could I write a list like this without including the first lady of gaming herself, Samus Aran? She's one of the most important video game characters there is, and despite the fact that she rarely ever says a word or shows her face, she's relatively well characterized. When it comes to personality, no, not that personality, shut up, there isn't a ton to speak of, Metroid Other Baby notwithstanding. She's a silent, no-nonsense badass wearing power armor who doesn't take shit from anyone. In a few notable games, they do give her a bit more than that, albeit subtle and usually unspoken. She's not entirely cold in her actions, she does feel remorse for various things she's done. She's also shown to have pity for those who can't defend themselves, can be totally vicious when provoked, and has a very strong sense of justice. It's not a lot, but it's usually told without words, so there's only so much you can do. While I do find her personality and backstory somewhat interesting, what I really like Samus for are her abilities and accomplishments. Thanks to her being raised by the Chozos and infused with their DNA, she's hyper-athletic naturally, but with military training and arms, she's essentially a human weapon. She's also been infected to self-produce Phazon, and as of right now in the Metroid canon, she's part Metroid. However, her abilities as far as the Metroid DNA go haven't been revealed much in depth. As far as her accomplishments go, she's got quite the resume. She's wiped out the entire population of Metroids, betrayed and become a fugitive of the Galactic Federation, thwarted numerous galaxy-wide threats, and she single-handedly destroyed planets. We may live in an age where planet busting is common, but it's not exactly an easy thing to do. In Smash Bros, Samus is a fan favorite with two completely different playstyles. Suited Samus has heavy artillery, and Zero Suit Samus is agile and tricky. And according to Sakurai and several people developing it, Samus was one of the strongest characters in Smash 4 as of the E3 build of the game. Now that the full game is out, that statement has proven to be accurate. Suited Samus is finally a well-built and balanced character, and Zero Suit Samus is a beast, one of the best characters in the game. And if you ask me, she's never looked better. There, I went for it. You happy now, you sick fuck? Oh hey look, I'm talking about Locke's Quest again. Maybe it's a good game or something, I don't know. You should play it and find out. Like I've said before, great story with memorable characters, so coming in at number 7 we have, Heathern. That name's freaking weird. Locke first meets Heathern very briefly before taking the Arcaneer recruitment exam, where she introduces herself as a senior Arcaneer and a commanding general. So it's obvious from the second you meet her that Heathern kicks a lot of ass. Later in the game you get to see her in action and... Damn, girl, you fine as a falcon! She's obviously highly skilled in combat, that's for sure. You only really start interacting with her around the final third of the game, but she does get a decent amount of her personality shown. She starts off acting rather cold and commanding, but a lot more of her is shown off rather quickly. After assisting her for a few missions, she warms up to Locke and teaches him how to build spiked walls, which are very helpful. Even though she does misunderstand and betray Locke eventually, she's very apologetic about it after realizing her mistake. She doesn't learn from it though, and her brash nature gets her into trouble later, leaving her wounded. Through her cold exterior, there's an incredibly warm and sympathetic person, as she helps Imai even after discovering her origins. It's also heavily implied she has feelings for Locke, and I like this because it's not forced. I appreciate a well-written romance, especially when it's something subtle like this. I also love how expressive her character portraits are. Most characters are moderately expressive, but I personally like her expressions best compared to the rest of the main cast, although she doesn't quite beat Locke's cocky smirk. Aw yeah. Hey guys, remember the Mega Man X4 review? Yeah, I'm glad you don't. Now for a fresh look at one of my favorite Mega Man characters, Iris. Iris first appears in Mega Man Xtreme 2, where she's an operator for the Maverick Hunters. In X4, she's one of the most important characters in the game, once again as a sidekick for Zero, but also as the Colonel of Repl Force's sister. Early in X4, Iris intervenes a scrap between Zero and the Colonel, keeping them from killing each other. It seems that she's not willing to take sides with either of them until the final stages where you're forced to kill the Colonel. After losing her brother, she takes his parts and merges them with her own to become what looks like a ride armor mech. An interesting thing to note is that Iris and the Colonel are two parts of the same Reploid. They were originally designed to be the perfect fighting Reploid, both a warrior and a peacemaker. However, those two parts couldn't exist in one body, so they were separated. And when they merge together, it makes them less than perfect. This battle with Iris is probably my favorite in X4. Not because it plays well, but because of how it's used as part of the story. Not to mention the Iris battle theme is one of my favorites in the game. Even if it is a short and repetitive track, it helps carry the emotional side of the battle rather well. After this battle with the less than perfect Reploid fusion, Iris passes after sharing her last words with Zero, who isn't pleased to say the least. This plot point pisses me off for all the right reasons, and I can't fault the game for it because it's not like it's badly written. I'm angry because it can't end any other way, not even in her appearances in other games. Her death is still one of the most enraging things I've experienced in gaming, but the sobering nature of it is brilliant. It's this fantastic story arc that stuck with me, and it's what lands her at the number 6 spot.
And here we have the fucking craziest character on this list. It's everyone's favorite sociopathic artificial intelligence, Gladys.
Hello again.
Gladys is a character I've liked for a good while. I hadn't played either Portal game, and I put her on that list there, but I have since played the first Portal game and a lot of co-op missions in Portal 2. Fantastically creative games, that's the least I can say. Moving right along to the actual character, Gladys is an AI developed by Apter Science to be a central control unit for the entire facility and can control literally everything that she's hooked up to. Her original purpose was to be a vessel for the mind of Cave Johnson, but he kicked the bucket too soon, so instead his wife was written onto the computer. How this works they don't really explain, but whatever, at least she's not a robot arm. After being activated, Gladys goes berserk and attempts to kill everyone in the facility. She falls just short and ends up letting a select few live. There's Ratman, who frankly scares the piss out of me a little bit, and then there's the silent protagonist, Shell. Because of Shell's silence, it almost feels like Gladys is speaking to, monitoring, and mocking the player. I mean, I don't mind. It's actually kind of fun. Except for the whole incinerating me thing, I could go without that. In the second game, it's made even better, with Gladys becoming an unlikely ally. The unfortunate situation brings out the more sane, but infinitely more sarcastic side of her. And hey, she doesn't threaten to kill you after you help her out. That's nice of her to leave us out here in the middle of nowhere. It's not hard for me to define why I like Gladys so much, because at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. She's fucking hilarious. I'm not gonna bombard you with clips of her saying random stuff out of context because that won't get the point across. What you really need to do is play at least one of these games for yourself and be tormented by one of the most lovably crazy characters I've ever encountered. It was inevitable that I'd have to include a character from the Professor Layton series, and who better to include than Professor Layton's sweetheart, Claire. Claire is one of the most integral pieces of the puzzle that is Unwound Future's plot. As it's shown during various flashbacks, she and Layton had a solid relationship going, and it brings out a side of Layton's character we don't really see beyond this game. While he keeps a cool demeanor most of the time, Layton carries a lot of baggage with him, and he quite literally wears it proudly. Layton's signature top hat is revealed to be a gift from Claire in one of the flashbacks during a rather endearing exchange. Good thing she gave him that new hat too, he looks like a goofball in the other cap. Claire's presence in Unwound Future is rather confusing, as she only appears for moments at a time, and for a majority of her time in the game poses as someone who doesn't even exist. After saving Layton and the crew from the family, she names herself Celeste and pretends to be Claire's younger sister. While the backstory is flimsy, Layton buys it hook, line, and sinker, allowing her to be part of the group for a while. During the game's climax, she assists Layton with her knowledge of machinery and saves several lives, including the main cast and most of London. After the collapse of Clive's walking fortress, her body becomes unstable and starts to fade from the reality of the present. She has an intensely emotional exchange with Layton before saying goodbye and going back to the past just in time to be killed by the faulty time machine. And with that, her story and the game's story comes to a close. Claire is a very sweet and endearing character, and I wish that there was more time dedicated to her and her relationship with Layton. No other game in the series makes mention of her, and she's only present for a fraction of Unwound Future. Her time in game, however short, is a major part of why I love Unwound Future, and she's still one of my favorite characters in the series.
And even now, years after first playing the game, it still enrages me that she had to die simply for the financial gain of one of the biggest assholes in gaming history. Fuck Bill Hawks.
Oh look, a Legend of Zelda character. Gee freaking whiz, I wonder who it might be. Okay, in all seriousness, I didn't cop out, stick Zelda at the number 3 spot and call it a day. Since they're all totally different characters, I decided to pick just one of the many incarnations of Zelda to represent the franchise. At number 3, we have Zelda from Spirit Tracks. In Spirit Tracks, we were given an angle on Zelda unlike any we'd ever seen before. For the first time in the series, Zelda was actually important throughout the game. She wasn't the end goal, she was part of the adventure itself. Because of her constant presence, she got to interact with other characters and be part of what was going on. She has an unusually positive personality for someone who's been removed from their body, but more power to her for being so optimistic. She isn't perfect though, she does have her moments of anger, fear, or that. Although it isn't unique to this incarnation, it's nice to see Zelda not only befriend Link, but to have a genuine relationship with him. Seeing them hold hands at the end of the game, it's totally precious. The best part of this is that Zelda isn't just a passenger on this journey. She lends a hand and comes in handy on numerous occasions. In a large segmented dungeon, the Tower of Spirits, Zelda can take control of the phantoms roaming the halls. Taking over a phantom and using it for your own uses is a lot of fun, and it makes for some of the most creative puzzles in the whole series. There's also a few mini-bosses and a really cool fight against Burn with Zelda inside of the phantom. Even during the final battle, she helps out. Like in a few other Zelda games, she helps draw out the final boss's weakness and will shoot light arrows at the big baddie. In this instance, the game takes advantage of the two screens nicely, with you controlling Zelda and aiming for a shot with the top screen. And she even helps Link deliver the final blow. Now that's teamwork.
The real superpower.
Nope, get that out of my video. No, we're not having that shit here. Shoo. Lighting up the number 2 spot, we have the Goddess of Light, Palutena.
Palutena is one of the most important characters of Kid Icarus Uprising, and definitely one of the most entertaining. She is a constant presence, providing helpful advice for Pit, sarcastically commenting on what's going on, or sneezing. Palutena is a gentle and kind character, sweet as lemonade with too much sugar in it. I'd say she's the most level-headed character in the game, but she isn't perfect. She has fits of frustration, especially when people call her ma'am, and she does have a mischievous streak, as shown on numerous occasions. However, her appreciation for human life and her respect of other gods' domains does make her a moral neutral within Uprising. Of course, as a god, her powers are immense, and it's shown how powerful she is at several points throughout the game. She defeats large enemies, provides healing items and transportation, and puts up a fight when she's being controlled by the Chaos Kin. Truly, she is the most powerful of the gods. Her assistance to Pit is the biggest factor for getting her on the list. She drops food, grind rails, vehicles, and guides you through levels, sure, but what's really important is that she grants you the power of flight. This quite literally makes the game, because without her power, Pit wouldn't be able to fly, and we wouldn't have a large portion of this incredible game. In Smash Bros, Palutena is one of the more complicated characters in the game. With special custom moves to set her up for a variety of playstyles and her potent standard moves, she's definitely keeping her word on not holding back on anyone. I'm not playing as her too much myself, but she's a very welcome addition to the roster. Oh, and what the hell was up with the trailer? Did they have to put those shots in there? I mean, this is from Nintendo, where sexualizing characters is the furthest thing from my mind. I'm only kidding. So if you remember during the introduction, I mentioned there was one specific game I've played recently that brought about the idea for this list. Well, that game just so happens to be Fire Emblem Awakening. When it comes to its characters, Fire Emblem Awakening is a very manipulative game. Since you're essentially playing as yourself, you'll probably end up caring about the characters much more than you would without an avatar character. You're thrown headlong into a world of colorful characters that you get to interact and bond with at your own pace. You're even rewarded for doing so in battle, and one of the game's main themes is forging invisible ties between people. With all this, the cast of characters is one of the most important parts of the game, and it's hard not to get attached to some of these characters. As for myself, I've grown quite fond of several characters, including the #1 spot. My favorite character in Awakening and my favorite female character in any game is Lissa. Like I just said, I was kind of manipulated into liking Lissa, but even after realizing that, she's still my favorite character in the game. Before playing Awakening, I knew that the game essentially had a shipping mechanic, which to me sounded totally ridiculous. But after reading my first support conversation with Lissa, which I unlocked on accident, I wanted to read more of them. So I continued on, battling with her at my side and becoming closer and closer to her. Of course, following this path, my avatar reached S support with Lissa, and as silly as it may sound, it made me genuinely happy that I married her. Over the course of the game's plot, she doesn't develop or change all that much, but the details you find out about her from the support conversations supply plenty of detail to her character. She interacts with the majority of the male characters and even a few of the ladies, and it's fun to read through them and see her personality show. She's easily frightened, compassionate towards everyone, and exceedingly optimistic. She can be a bit immature at times, but she can be serious when she needs to be. Her less than noble nature allows her to be more relatable to commoners and other members of the army, which is helpful for raising morale and tends to bring out the best of most characters. And she's so gosh darn cute. I won't deny it, Lissa's absolutely fucking adorable. It's one of her defining traits and one of my favorite things about her. As a unit, Lissa is one of the most effective healers in the game. She benefits from being the first healer you get, as she can work on building experience early. Leveling healers is always difficult, but it's worth it to get her to an offensive class. She may be outclassed in raw power by a number of others, but she served my army well through numerous playthroughs. Using her as a sage is the best option to benefit what she's good at. With her max stat modifiers boosting her magic, she can take full advantage of tomes and staves. Plus, she wears Emeren's gown, which I always thought was a nice touch. Thanks to the variety of classes she can switch to, her skill pool provides a number of useful skills. There's Heal Touch to increase her healing ability, Renewal for restoring her health, Dual Support Plus to make her an even better pairing unit, and Gale Force for increasing her overall potency. Lissa is always an integral part of my army, and is always my in-game wife. I team her up with my avatar, and they quickly become an untouchable duo of spellcasting destruction. She's lovable, potent as a unit, and so cute I could explode into a cloud of Skittles. She is far and away my favorite character in Awakening, and my favorite female character in video games.